It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin BJ here with you. A little afternoon basketball for you here on ESPN Radio as the ACC tournament coming up here. Two buzzer beater in the early game. Georgia Tech moves on to the semifinals in game number 2. Florida State gets a bye to the semifinals with Duke catching a case of COVID. And we'll have another game for you tonight coming up. Pregame coverage starting at 8 p.m. Got to get caught up quickly. We'll come back, get you ready for more 3 and Out. We'll chat with Horace Broadnax, Savannah State head basketball coach, top of the final hour. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. It's three and out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Glad to have you along here on this Thursday. Had some ACC hoops earlier this afternoon. Georgia Tech and Virginia both moving on a buzzer beater, BJ, for Virginia to survive in advance and move on over Syracuse.
Yeah, you've had a couple of those in the ACC tournament already when you think about Notre Dame getting by Wake Forest as well. So three, money, you take it at the buzzer. That's what March is all about. And I'll say this, if you're a Virginia fan or a Georgia Tech fan, don't worry about close wins. It's not about margin of victory. It's about finding a way to get it done in March, getting that dub and moving on. Survive in advance. You don't need style points.
And they have done that. Florida State has moved forward by proxy of Duke bowing out of the ACC tournament due to a COVID case in their program. And we'll get the late game tonight, North Carolina. Going to be a great one there for the Tar Heels to see if they can push their way through. We'll chat with Horace Broadnax. He knows something about March Madness when we come back. It's three and out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We are streaming live at ESPNCoastal.com. Good to have you along here on 3 and Out on this Thursday. Glad you're with us. Final hour of the show. A lot to get to here on the program. We'll look back at the SEC and ACC tournaments that have taken place, the games have taken place thus far. Today, we'll also reflect back on what a year it's been in the world of sports, the world in general, but certainly in the world of sports. So we'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. But it is March. Our next guest knows a little bit about that. He was a member of the 83-84 Georgetown Hoyas national championship team. He's now currently the head basketball coach at Savannah State. Horace Broadnax joins us here on 3 and Out. Coach, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Here at Savannah State, we didn't get an opportunity to play a full season, but we played, 3 games. So that was better than nothing. So looking forward to next year, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is this, past year been like for you guys? Because basketball season is kind of when it all stopped. And then you come back around not knowing if you're going to get to play. And as you said, due to various issues and contact tracing around the league, you guys only got, 3 games in. What has that been like for you as the head of a program to try to, keep everybody upbeat and on the same message here?
Yeah, the guys had opportunity to get in the gym and get shots up off and on. And, if there was some COVID protocol that we didn't meet or opposing team didn't meet, then, we had to shut it down for a little bit. But it's been different. It's been, as far as I'm concerned, give you an idea of being grateful. You think everything is, you kind of not necessarily take things for granted, but you just assume that everything is going to move forward like it moved forward in the past. And, this COVID pandemic threw us a curveball, and we just had to make some adjustments. And I think we learned a lot, and hopefully we can move forward. If the pandemic lingers around, we'll be better prepared for next year.
And Coach, obviously you've been around the game a long time. You've had incredible success. March is such a special time of year. What does March Madness mean to you?
Well, it's fun, just like what it says, March Madness, and you get to watch some teams play. It's a special time. I think your focus as a basketball player and as a coach, if you get an opportunity to participate in it, your focus is extremely sharp, and your energy level is through the roof, and it's a great opportunity for these guys that's going to be able to participate in it. In Indianapolis, it's going to be a different circumstance, but I think whoever winds up being a champion, I think it's going to be a special championship because everybody who got to this point had to overcome a lot. So it's going to make it real special. It's going to be a real special March.
I was going to say overcoming a lot is something everybody has to do every March. This one's a little different, but what was that run in 83-84 like for you guys? And obviously now, without having regionals and things of that nature, how do you think that maybe differs for the teams that are going to make it here when we find out Selection Sunday?
Yeah, I think it is different. I think when we came through the west side, we was an East Coast team, and back in the early 80s, and you would kind of distinguish teams from where they were, the West Coast teams versus the East Coast team. Some team were more defensive oriented, some team was more, open, offensive. So I think it benefited us for, going out west because we were a different brand. They hadn't seen us a lot. And we was able to, play against some teams from the west and be able to ease in. But this year's tournament is going to be real strange because everybody's going to be playing in the same region. So I don't know how they're going to set the brackets up, but it's going to be kind of strange without the fans. And I think fans have a lot to do with it. I coached 3 games this year with no fans in the stands, and you kind of get into the basketball game, once it starts. But at the same time, you could see runs in the game that a home crowd fan would have probably cut that run, or you'd have got the energy from your fans to make a run. So that's going to be very interesting in the tournament when they have limited capacity, limited fans.
And to that point, Coach, watching the ACC tournament, we just saw Georgia Tech. You're accustomed to the fan reaction, and at the tournaments in Greensboro, the big crowds for North Carolina or Duke or NC State, and you don't have that. I mean, is that maybe more of a factor here in March, and as you mentioned in the NCAA tournament, than maybe people are fully appreciating right now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look at some of the programs, I don't know if you would think that it had an impact on Kentucky with that crowd. They have some tremendous crowd support at Kentucky. You look at Duke, tremendous crowd support at Duke. Kansas kind of struggled a little bit, but I think they got it going there for a minute. But I think the fans not being there is going to, maybe hinder a few programs. It may have an impact. But I think once they get going that first weekend, that second, Sweet 16, I think these guys, coaches and players are going to understand they always understand what they're playing for. And I think they're going to make those mental adjustments as they proceed through the league. But I think it may have a huge impact the first round.
Horace Broadnax joining us here on 3 and Out. You mentioned the no fans. You said once you kind of got into the game, it was there. But how much does that affect your team when you kind of, I guess you guys from the sideline have to create the urgency, the momentum, whatever it is to kind of give your team that jolt?
Well, I mean, you do what you have to do as a coach, and knowing some of your players, you try to make adjustments, lineup wise. Energy guys, you kind of know who got energy. If you need energy, guys who, make free throws, who could play defense, who could put the ball in the basket, and you try to put those different combinations in there. But without the fans, there's times when we were playing well, if we were at home, the fans understand that you're playing well, and that's an added boost. A guy may, want to take a charge, a guy may want to dive on the floor. So, like I said, I think it's going to have an impact on that first round until the guys get used to it, because I think, teams who have huge following are not going to have that advantage. So it's going to make for a good tournament, I believe.
I think we as fans, Coach, when we look at the NCAA tournament, we kind of assume in the mind that the early games are going to be easier, and then the advanced rounds are going to have more competitive finishes. And with you guys' national championship run, I believe your closest game was a 1-point victory over SMU in the opening round, and then at least in terms of the final score, y'all won by double digits every other game. What was that like in '84 to have that tight finish right out of the gate in round one, and then, relatively speaking, kind of have easier wins the rest of the way to a national championship?
Well, that's the beauty of March Madness, because everybody's excited about that first game, and it's been I think every seed has been upset thus far, so it's no easy round. But I think when we played, it was a close game, and there was no shot clock, and it was a low-scoring game, and we got lucky. I mean, we got lucky. We was down. I think we were down one. Somebody, I want to say Gene Smith was shooting the free throw, and he missed, and SMU didn't box out, and Patrick slipped in and tipped the ball in, as opposed to being down, one. Having to play defense, we go up one, and then we get a stop and was able to win. So, it's that first game, man. It's not easy, and and this year a lot of people have been getting upset, and a lot of good teams, blue blood teams, have not been playing well. But I think it's gonna make, like I said, it's gonna make for a real good tournament, and I think. The small guy or the mid-major guy may have an advantage in this tournament this year.
So that being said, do you think we have somebody just completely off the radar win this thing?
Well, you look at Gonzaga; they've really been good, and Baylor really been good. But I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Houston Cougars is up there in the top 10. Creighton Blue Jays, you might have a team that typically is not considered in the picture. You know, I know there's a lot of blue bloods up there, but you know, it's definitely some teams out of the Big East might step up. Like I said, Houston, and there's a couple more that BYU. I mean, BYU played Gonzaga extremely well the other night, so I was surprised about that. So I mean, if they get seeded right, and yeah, it could be some early upsets.
A lot of people will point to free throw shooting. A lot of people talk about defense. A lot of people talk about point guard play. Is there one key in particular in your mind to winning big games in March?
You say winning big games
in March, here in March, in the tournament? Yes, sir.
Any particular team that comes to mind?
Yeah, I'm just asking for any team. Is there one key that's kind of universal for success in the month of March?
I mean, it's easy to say. I mean, Gonzaga, I think they're real stacked at the guard position. Like, what you talking about, you know, Nimrod leaving from Florida. I mean, they got a tremendous. I don't know. I hadn't seen him. I saw him play the other night. I don't know if he's coming off the bench, but and Baylor got great backcourt play. I mean, I hadn't really been watching that much, but I just remember watching Baylor play and Gonzaga play. So. I think when you have guards that could, you know, distribute the basketball and not stay on it that much and be able to score, it gives you, and be able to create for your teammates. I mean, it gives you an opportunity to be very, very successful.
Head basketball coach at Savannah State, our guest here on 3 and Out. Coach, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it always.
Thank
you
so
for
much.
having me.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you much. Horace Broadnax joining us here on 3 and Out. And again, 2020, one of those things, BJ, they only got to play 3 games. And as he said, you take it, but, you know, just goes to show you start looking at some of these records. I think Kentucky was like 9-15. Didn't play the full allotment of what you would consider a full season, obviously. And you see some teams that have played maybe 15, 20 games. That are just trying to do what they can do. And here we are in March. And, man, I really think anything could possibly happen. I think what happened with Duke today, you know, got some people saying, well, what happens if this happens next week? And I think the answer is it's 2021, 2020, 2021. You got to expect something like that's going to happen and move forward.
Yeah, I don't think we know kind of what the reality is that's awaiting the NCAA tournament. But great to hear from Coach Broadnax. Obviously, a legend as a player and a coach, and always enjoy his perspective. You're right about the wide ranging variables. I was listening to the Louisville game last night, and they said, and of course Louisville was playing Duke. They said Louisville's had 7 postponements this season. So you look at their schedule; a lot of their games were reallocated at the end of the year, and they tried to squeeze them in. I know Florida State, whose game is canceled tonight, has only played 20 games all season. Meanwhile, North Carolina, who plays later tonight, has 19 wins. And Florida State's a higher seed than North Carolina. So you have a lot of just, I don't know, unevenness in terms of the records and the games played. And it's going to be really, really interesting. You know, hopefully the best case scenario plays itself out all the way around and everybody's safe and healthy and we don't have to have any cancellations, but it's going to be really interesting to see what happens moving forward.
Certainly. We've got more to come here on 3 and Out. A year ago is when it all kind of came to a screeching stop. We'll reflect on that and look ahead as what's to come. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you along here on 3 and Out on this Thursday. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett here with you. Glad you're with us. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We're streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com, also live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can catch the show there as well. But a year ago, it was the shutdown with Rudy Gobert and the Jazz. Pulled him off the court, and the next day, you had conference tournaments that were set to go off, and I distinctly remember that. You were getting ready. Here we had what we had today, which was the ACC basketball tournament. You had Florida State and Clemson getting ready to play one of their basketball games, and a lot of rumblings about, are they playing? Are they not playing? What's going to happen? And then all of a sudden, about 20 minutes before tip-off, everybody disappears, and you're going, I don't think this is going to happen. And then the trickle happened. SEC canceled, ACC canceled, and so on and so forth. And from that point in March, we didn't have sports again until the end of July. It was just nothing. Everything shut completely down, BJ. And what a time it was to go from everything rolling along to completely shut down, and seeing how long it's taken to slowly get back to the point where we are now.
It was startling. And I think when you saw what was happening result in that on a sports landscape that was, very diverse in terms of the scheduling, the, ways that games are played, you started to realize, wow, this is really, really serious. When the news first started to come out and you first started to learn about COVID and coronavirus, you're trying to piece everything together. I mean, I know for me, I still know nothing about that, but this was something that was so beyond my scope and scale of being able to process information that you're just looking for, data and kind of stats and news that's easy to understand. And I think for all of us, we go to sports for kind of casual entertainment and to get a break from whatever we're dealing with. And when you turn it on, and Kevin, as you said, it happens so fast, man, like a domino effect through all the sports. And then you're looking around and the NCAA tournament is canceled. And I think to me, and I've talked about this just on a personal level, with my diabetes, I've been extra aware, extra concerned. I mean, I've been scared, quite frankly, through all this. And when you saw kind of the ramifications in things that you just always assumed would be there, you started to look around and go, my God, I mean, this is very, very, very concerning, and this is going to alter everything that we do. I think it's appropriate to use that word, even from a sports context, just to say it's scary, because you've never seen anything like that. I mean, so much of how we process information is based off of, okay, well, the last time this happened, what was the result and how did we get through it? And it was a lot, and it remains a lot. I know we're, hopefully seeing some pretty serious progress, and the vaccine stuff is awesome. But especially when we were early on in this, Kevin, and even the folks who've been doing such incredible work and such courageous work in the medical field, we're still trying to learn about it themselves, as there was such little information. I mean, we just didn't know. It was scary. It was very scary. And to see sports kind of just pause everything was very startling to all of us. It certainly was to me.
Yeah. And again, I don't think you ever really, that was the moment when you kind of saw a lot of other stuff shut down. Like, things were still rocking and rolling along as far as day-to-day restaurants, businesses, and all that kind of stuff. And then the NBA shuts down, college basketball shuts down, Major League Baseball shuts down, and all of a sudden all the sports kind of shut down. And then you saw, businesses and restaurants, all that kind of come together and say, okay, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. So it was kind of a strange time to watch it all kind of unravel, I guess, if that's the correct word or phrase to use, right there in front of us. And, see where we've come a year from now. I know in the midst of it, it was, what we know today won't be the same as what we know in 2 weeks from now. And that was certainly the case. And now you look back a year later and say, well, what we know now was, infinite to what we were being told way back this time a year ago. So, it's amazing to see how far it comes. And I've always said this, sports is a thing, especially in our society, that brings people together. I think people want that. I mean, as just Americans, we are people that like to gather and do things, right? So sports is one of those things where everybody could get together and say, I don't even like basketball, but I'll fill out a bracket and watch the tournament, and we'll have fun in the office and all that. And I think that is one of the things I think has helped kind of get people back going again, is the fact that you saw Major League Baseball come back. You saw the NBA come back, albeit in a bubble, but I mean, they came back and were like, hey, we're doing it. I think there's ways we can move forward and not just, sit at the house and wait till whatever happens. So I think that was good on sports to kind of keep moving forward. And I think they showed it could be done in a large way, moving. You can still have games. You can still do some of those things. We still couldn't gather, but I think, as you said, we're starting to see some of that where there were fans at the ACC tournament today. Wasn't a lot, but there were fans there. There's going to be fans in Major League Baseball stadiums. May not be a lot, but there's going to be fans there. We saw fans at college football games. I mean, so I think we saw gradually sports kind of push that same note it always does, which is like whenever there's a crisis, that's kind of one thing that galvanizes everybody and kind of moves people forward. I thought 9/11, the Mets Braves, the President Bush at the time going out there throwing the pitch. And it seemed like that was kind of one of the moments where people were like, okay, we can do this again. We can continue to process and move forward. So, man, what a year it's been since you kind of sit here and go, wait, what they did? What? Like, one guy on the Jazz has coronavirus and now the whole league shut down like that. I mean, that's basically what we were thinking, a year ago. So, hard to believe that was a year ago in some respects. It feels like about 4 years, but but there, nevertheless, here we are.
What's amazing is I was thinking the same thing. In some ways, in some ways, it kind of feels like, relatively speaking, the year has gone by pretty quick, and then in some ways, it feels like it's been a decade. All at once. And you mentioned something a few moments ago where you said part of the challenge was just we didn't know, and I think that was what made this so tragically and unfortunately unique, was that with a lot of things you deal with, you take the information that's right there, that's concrete, and you use that as sort of your bedrock for what you're doing. And and understandably, I mean, look, we're talking about something that didn't exist, and now it exists, and we're trying to figure it out. The information changed, and kind of what we know now compared to what we knew a year ago is beyond compare. And how do you move forward? How do you create a schedule? How do you create guidelines? How do you account for safety? How do you travel? How do you eat? I mean, little basic routine things. How do you do that in an environment where you don't know? And I know we all echo this, but I every day, truly, honestly, I think about the bravery and the sacrifice of countless people, the tireless work of doing things like, spraying down areas and wiping down seats and cleaning off handles and making sure people have, the waterless soap and just all the stuff, putting up the social distancing signs. Our entire frames of reference have changed. I mean, over the last couple of months, Kevin, just about every hour of every day, I'm thinking about a virus. I'm thinking about, viral loads and incubation periods and things that I'd never heard of, I'd never heard of. I'd never heard of prior to a year ago. I mean, how does a cloth mask work? About, what's an N95 mask? It's like all this stuff that on March 1st, I didn't even know existed. And now it's a defining kind of reality, not only for me, of course, but for the world. It was a complete paradigm shift. And to kind of have the answers for sports through all that was impossible. But yeah, I mean, it looks like, feels like, and I say this, as hopeful as possible that we're making some serious progress, and that better days are on the horizon, and that, there are some concrete options and information out there that has us all in a better place. But I mean, you're right, man. I don't know how to surmise what has happened over the last year with COVID. It's been absolutely staggering.
Certainly. And a year ago today is when it kind of all hit on a big way across the country as we saw sports just come to a screeching halt 1 year ago today. We've got more to come here on Three and Out on this Thursday. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We're streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. Good to have you here on 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett here with you. Hit us up on Twitter. Love to hear from you at Pigskin Radio, at Pigskin Radio. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well, in live audio streaming, ESPNCoastal.com. We'll get some more basketball news out there as well. But BJ, Travis Etienne, obviously had a good pro day, 4-4-1 in the 40 after bulking up to a 215. So played right around 200 at for the season, 15 pounds put on, 4-4-1. I mean, that's pretty good. I still like that. I'm still a big, hey, go watch the tape. But 4-4-1 for running back, that's catch it out of the backfield, do a number of things. That's not bad.
No, I do agree. I kind of chuckled when I saw the reaction on social media to Travis's pro day, not because it wasn't a great pro day, but because I'm like you. I don't care if he runs a 5.51. I don't care. I've seen him be one of the greatest players in college football history, and I've seen him score 70 rushing touchdowns and average over 7 yards per carry for his career. So I didn't need that affirmation, but for a lot of people, that stuff really matters. And yeah, he's very impressive. I mean, to have added the bulk and maintain that elite speed. And make no mistake about it, we as a society have a problem with interpreting 40-yard dash numbers. We do. First off, every person on earth thinks at some point in high school or whatever, or maybe even still, they ran a 4.55. Okay, here's the breaking news of the day. You did not. That did not occur. There are very few people who actually run a true 4.5, much less a 4.4. And then sometimes we also apply kind of the elite top end speed metrics to every other position. So like an Eric Stokes, who's a corner, runs a 4.31, which is one of the 5 fastest 40-yard dash times by a corner ever. And we apply that as kind of the new standard for every other position. If you run a 4.4 as a running back, that is a 10 out of 10. That is absolutely elite. Outside of like Chris Johnson, no one in history does better than that. So this is an A+ if you needed that out of Travis Etienne, and it's an A+ on top of what was an A++ career out of the young man. So yeah, I don't know what more people need to see. I don't know why he's not being talked about as more of a top half of the first round type pick. But yes, absolutely a very good day for Travis Etienne.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I would go with that. I know Eric Stokes, we mentioned, ran a 4.28 in the 40. Georgia's pro day coming up next week. I think the 17th is Wednesday of next week. So Georgia's pro day coming up there. I mean, if I'm him, I'm not running again. You post a number and you let that be. I mean, unless it's just abysmal, like you run a 40 like me, like you don't run it again, right? I mean, it's like, and I have my famous 40, but I ran it again and I improved. It's fine. But if you run a 4.28, like, no, what could you possibly be wanting to prove after dropping a 4.28 on somebody?
Yeah, and I know some people will say, oh, you don't want to compete. No, it's not that. It's why would you do again what you've already done to the best of anybody's ability on earth, right? It's like that is elite. And for me, I know this is a philosophical debate that happens every March all across the country, but I'm not one that's necessarily singularly blown away by the combine stats. I like the combine stats. I think they're a good frame of reference. But to me, if your combine stats are super elite and you weren't a good player, that concerns me. If your combine stats are average and you were an elite player, I'm not necessarily worried about how fast you run in a straight line in your underwear. That doesn't happen a lot in pro football. As Ben talks about all the time, weight room strength is great. Track speed is great. But very rarely are people doing things that even come close to resembling that athletically in a football game. So I like the game tape. I like the production. I like what you do in actual live competition. But sure, absolutely. Eric Stokes should be extremely proud of that. Should he run again? Of course not. No. If you take a math test and you make a 100 out of 100 and they say, hey, you want to retake this same math test? No, that would make
if I got a 90 on that bad boy, I'm not taking it again.
Yeah, but I mean, Eric Stokes just made 100 is what I'm getting at.
I know.
So there's no reason to take the same math test. Come on, people, get with the program.
No, I get you. Math tested me. It's like, let me just post a score. Even if it was bad, I'm not taking it again because you can always do worse. And then, believe me, I guess we got time. I could tell the story. It's funny. In college, I took chemistry, right? I had to take that as one of my science. Yeah, exactly. So needless to say, I started out and my first test came back. I got a 56 on it. I'm like, "Yeah, that wasn't too good. Yeah, that wasn't too good." So I'm like, well, there's always room for improvement, right? Next test, and the thing was, lecture time, lab on it. Understand what's going on. Test, couldn't do it. Took the second test, made a 16 on it. I said, this might not be for me. So
Dude, that's actually impressive.
it was like I felt like I should have gone to the teacher and go, look, I had to try really hard to almost get single digits on this test. Like, I mean, really hard. And the thing is, like, I've always been kind of like a lazy studier. I actually studied for that and got a 16. Like, so that, like, for all you teachers, that like confirmed everything that I felt like. I studied really hard and got a 16. I should have just done what I normally do and been probably okay.
Yeah, is it the key to life caring less?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the less
most
you
probably, yeah.
care, the less you study, the better you're going to do. But no, these workouts are interesting. I know it bothers a lot of people, right? Like when a quarterback shows up and doesn't throw, or when a guy says I'm not running. But you have to understand, for a lot of these results, they are not being just impartially interpreted, right? It's not like if you go out and you're pretty good, people will go, oh, well, it is what it is. It's a workout. No, people are painting this as like the singular depiction of who you are as an athlete, and it's unchangeable for the rest of your life. So given the dramatic overreaction that occurs to all this, I understand some of the hesitation. Because if you're a player, for example, and you just had a 4-year career and you had a really good career, and if you're invited to the virtual combine or you had a pro day, you had a really good career, okay? You are clearly somebody that pro scouts are looking at. And now you're being told, or at least indirectly, all right, what you did those last 4 years, that got you here. But now you got to go stand and do something that's not representative of anything you're going to do in a game. You're not even going to have on a full uniform. There's going to be no live competition, and 200 people with cell phone cameras and stopwatches are going to be staring at you, watching how your calf muscle fluctuates when you step left to right. It's crazy. So I understand guys who say, look, man, I just balled out for 4 years. You know how fast I am. You know how big I am. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do something for you to overreact to. But for guys who
I certainly agree. I mean,
but for guys who do like ETN, I mean, Kevin, that's an exclamation point on his career.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, if you run it and it's an acceptable number, don't run it again. I mean, that's, to me, we've seen a few guys. I'm trying to think, was it maybe the running back from Florida State? I can't remember which one, who came out and they were like, man, it was like a 4.7. We thought he'd be a little faster than that. He ran again at the pro day and it was about a 4.7. I'm like, just if you feel like that's the number, just leave it alone, and let it speak for itself, and let the tape do what the tape does. Because as you said, I mean, there's not too many times you're just going to get a running start with nobody trying to tackle you and run in a straight line. If you're running in a straight line, chances are you've beaten everybody on the field and you're behind them.
Or it means your quarterback's thrown a pick six and you're chasing somebody down. I mean,
you are trying to rattle them down and chase them down before they score. But yeah, I think a lot of that gets overdone. I'm not saying it's not important like you, BJ. I think there's some merit to it, but I think that's also where you read too much into what happens at the combine. You're like, oh, his fingers aren't quite as long as we would like, or his shoulders are a little bit too rounded. I mean, can he throw a football? Can he throw it accurately? And can somebody catch it? And can he understand what we're trying to tell him to do? If he can't understand what we're trying to tell him to do, that is a problem. If he can throw it accurately, with the zip we like, good. But don't come back with like, well, the shoulders are a little rounded, and the finger spread was 7 3/4 and not 7 and 6 7ths or whatever. I mean, it's like, come on, like just some of these things are overly done and don't matter. We'll come back. We'll talk some basketball before we step aside here on a Thursday. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you along here on 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett here with you. Glad you're making us a part of your day. We've got some college hoops for you later tonight in the Savannah area. You'll hear Georgia and Mizzou. Big one tonight. They're in the SEC, and Waycross, Blackshear, and Brunswick. You'll hear the nightcap, or what is left of the nightcap, in the ACC with Virginia Tech and North Carolina. So some college basketball coming up tonight already. Kentucky is out. BJ, they are eliminated, and Duke out of the ACC tournament due to COVID. They won't make the NCAA tournament for the first time in 24 years. So I believe so. Just strange all the way around. Duke, Kentucky, not going anywhere in March Madness.
Yeah, it'll be a little different having March Madness without Duke, without Kentucky, and you know you hate the way it ended for Duke with coronavirus. With Kentucky, they lost by 1 point to Mississippi State. So it's been a competitive SEC tournament already. I think Florida had to fend off Vanderbilt late in that one, and for Georgia, you got to create your own momentum. You've lost 3 out of 4 overall. I know you played some tough teams, played Alabama in that stretch, but you got to be able to be a little more comfortable and effective and efficient in these tight back and forth games. So Georgia's going to be tested right away. I think where Georgia is, you're probably looking at coming out of the SEC at 14-11, having to win the tournament, or at the very least make it to the finals potentially. Florida's probably already in, but one more win can always make you feel a little better. And then I do think in the ACC tonight, for the and I guess it'll still start at 9:30 for the late game.
It's 8:30. They moved it up.
Okay, so 8:30 now. That's a really good game. North Carolina and Virginia Tech. North Carolina's been playing a heck of a lot better here down the stretch. They're going to be in the tournament even if they lose. And Virginia Tech's nationally ranked. Quietly, they've been one of those. I think they call them the new bloods in the ACC with Florida State and Virginia Tech. They're a good basketball team that's in the tournament as well. And I believe the winner of that game will play Florida State tomorrow in the ACC tournament. So still got some star power, some big time nationally ranked programs in the ACC tournament. And I'm excited for these mid-major tournaments too, man. I know we had a couple of swings and misses in the finals in our state with Mercer losing in their conference tournament final in Georgia State. But programs I've never even heard of, man. I'm watching it going, wow, I have no idea what state this school's even in. And they have a chance to make the NCAA tournament. And normally when you get into this time of the year, you have games on ESPN or ESPN Plus, like up through midnight, 11:30 midnight. So March Madness is in full swing here.
And again, I'll be interested to see when it's all said and done. And we can talk more about this tomorrow on the show. But something we talked about with Coach Broadnax is everybody's going to be in Indianapolis. Maybe not in the same gym, but they're going to be in Indianapolis. Not very many fans going to be there. Usually that's what makes March Madness March, is that the underdog, the little engine that could, starts winning. All of a sudden the crowd turns and they're like, hey, upset city, we want to see it. And you're not going to have that. I wonder if in a generic kind of vacuum where it's just kind of dead in terms of the environment in the arena, if we see less upsets because maybe just a better team wins.
I think there may be something to that. And I've been to the NCAA tournament a number of times, and you're right. Even if you have a school from, the Pacific Northwest that's really small playing in the Deep South, well, the fan base of every other team that's there that's in that pod is rooting directly for them. So, when the 14 seed goes on a 7-0 run, all of a sudden it's like they're the LA Lakers out there and they're playing with energy, and, the whole crowd's behind them. That's very real. It is. And I mean, you also wonder if you're a 1 seed, if you're a Baylor or a Gonzaga, or you're, Michigan, and you're used to playing, with expectations and the bright lights. And I know that hasn't been the case this year, but the last couple of years in the, last year as well. But if you step out there and it's just a different kind of energy because you're in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8, and there's not that buzz, there's not that hype, there's not that, 30,000 fan backdrop. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out.
I certainly will. Again, we appreciate Coach Horace Broadnax joining us, head basketball coach at Savannah State. Again, strange season for everybody. They only were able to play 3 games here due to various protocols and just things that happened around their conference. But we appreciate him joining us, sharing his thoughts. Certainly he had shining moments there in March Madness winning the championship with Georgetown 83-84. Again, coming up in about 30 minutes in our Savannah market, you've got Georgia and Mizzou coming up 8 o'clock in Brunswick, Waycross, and Blackshear. We've got the nightcap of the ACC. So college basketball coming your way regardless. We'll see you tomorrow, Friday afternoon, 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network.